In this session we'll see what model driven forms are, or reactive forms. They also use form control and form group class instances, but these instances needs to be created manually rather than having Angular create them when applied these directives. So template driven forms also need form control and form group class instances, but Angular will help us in generating those instances. But in model driven or reactive forms we use the same instances, the form group and form control instances, but we do it manually rather than having Angular creating those instances for us. Model driven forms make the custom validations easy. This is one of the features what we have in model driven. The form controls can be added or removed dynamically using reactive forms. Like we can dynamically add an element or remove an element in the form, which is not possible with template driven forms. And by default HTML provides some attributes like min length, max length and required, which we used in template driven forms for validation purpose. But reactive forms do not use any of these attributes. Instead validators are assigned. So validation has to perform validation using reactive forms, we have a different approach. Everything we'll see in detail, and here we have the following steps to be followed. Reactive forms are created in TypeScript class and is synchronized to the view and is done by the following steps. All the classes that are required to build reactive forms come from reactive forms module. So we need to import reactive forms module in app module. App module. So we need to form module and let's include reactive forms module. Reactive forms module. Yeah, so this is required, and then which needs to be registered along with forms module in the root module by importing from Angular forms and required to be added in the imports array. So in the imports array we need to register reactive forms module that gets imported from Angular forms. Form group, form control, form array and validators needs to be imported from Angular forms, and an instance is created using the new operator in the TypeScript classes. So back in TypeScript classes we need to include form group, or I remove all this for now, remove this one as well, and I remove all this one also. Now when I say new form group, so this is what I need to import, new form group, and I do something like this, and I need to assign it. So for now form group, these I'm supposed to import from Angular forms, will be importing them when required, and an instance is created using new operator in the TypeScript class, which is what I have done here. Objects of below types needs to be created, so you need to assign this to, don't need this, instead I'll say user form of type form group, and this is what I need to use it over here, this dot user form equal to new form group, and all this we do it in ng on init. So this is the basic thing, that basic steps we need to follow, and then form group is considered as a parent form that should be created in ng on init hook. Technically an instance of form group needs to be created using the new operator. So new form group and these are the form controls. So I've created a form group in which I need to create form controls, and that's possible when I say new form control. And I open and close a bracket. I need to import this form group comma form control, and this entire thing I need to name it. Let us have it as name. If we need to have multiple text boxes, let this be first name, and I want another text box, let that be L name, and you say new form control. So for every name or a text box you need to create a form control. We have name, first name and last name, and we may have email, and again we say new form control, and let's have another address, and in which address is a group of form controls. So for that I need to use new form group but not a form control. So this is like a div in which I need 2 or 3 text boxes, which again I say address 1 new form control, sorry, yes, it's form control, and address 2 again I say new form control, address 1 and address 2. So this is a form that I'm creating using some code. I manually create an instance of form group in which I place instances of form controls, which are all controls. So a form is prepared or done from the TypeScript class. Now what we need to do is, this parent form of form group holds all the input controls. Technically these input controls are instances of type form controls, and form group applied to div. So if you need to take this as a div which is of type form group. Inside the div I have 2 form control elements, address 1 and address 2. These are form controls again that are created using new operator and are passed to form group as key value pair objects. So I'm passing all this as key value pair objects to form group. Once this is done, then we'll move on to form control and validation. Form control is considered as an element inside the form and should be created in form group as an instance of type form control. So you say new form group in which you give a key name, in our case name, email, first name, last name, address, and you create an instance, and in which you can pass an initial value. Let it be F name itself or something like Kiran. So this is how I can pass an initial value to the text box. I am still with TypeScript, but this entire TypeScript created form should be attached or rendered to the HTML, and that's my next thing. To validate a form control, use a validator class that has provide properties like required. Okay, it's all validation. The validation can be applied to a HTML control using the get method. So we'll do some validation, but the next step would be attaching or rendering this form to the HTML, and that is possible using these steps. Once reactive forms are created in TypeScript class, to synchronize it to the following view, we have these steps. Perform the property binding between the created in TypeScript class and the form group directive. Imported from reactive forms to an HTML form. So we need to have a form over here. So I'll have a div initially, and the class would be container. In this I'll have a form, And to the form, as I said, we need to perform the property binding, which is form group, and we need to assign this form group instance, user form. You need to say user form, and this is how you attach or render this entire form to the HTML. And once this is done, so this is the first step. The form controls or input controls should also be binded as input form control. So what is that we have created in here? We have fname, lname, ename as text boxes. So I need to say input type equal to text, and I need to say form control name equal to f name. This is the same thing that we have as a key for the object of form control. Likewise, I say lname and email. After that, I have a div for address. I have a div to which I say form group name equal to address add. This is the one, inside which again I have input type equal to text, and again form control name equal to, you say, address 1 and address 2. So this is how you map the form being created, the instances being created in the TypeScript, and the controls, HTML controls being created in HTML. So now we'll see, I'll save it and then we'll come on to this one over here, and we have cannot find control with fname. So what's the problem? Okay, so it's capital N what I used. I save it as N and N over here, and now I'll save this. Let's see. So you got the initial value, this is the one, and others do not have any initial value, and they got created over here. I can go for a BR for, and then a div as well. Oh, sorry, a submit button submit, and then you say submit, and I'll have a BR, this BR over here. Now save everything and see, you have BR and a BR over here again. BR. Now if you save it, okay, so you have a form with a div in it, address, and these are address 1 and address 2, these are email, name, first name and last name. So you have all set now. You have created a form group and form control instances using new operator in TypeScript, and you have created HTML controls in HTML, and now using the form group and form control name and form group name, you have combined or mapped all these controls with the instances being created over here. And now we'll go ahead and type or get the values being typed over here in TypeScript. We'll continue with the last example, wherein we have created a form group and form control instances in TypeScript, and we could map them to the HTML controls created in the HTML file, and we see no error as of now, and it works absolutely fine. Now what we need to do is, the values that we type in here, when I click on the submit button, I need to get them in the TypeScript. For that, we need to perform the on submit event ng submit, and when this is the event that happens, call on submit method. Now in here I can create a method on submit, and I'll console log this dot the user form. Now I'll save both the files. Let's see the output. So when I do the click, I'll fill up some values and do the submit. Now you see form control, and we have the address, email, first name, last name, and you also have values for it, value. So this can be further extended as form group dot controls dot address, or we'll start with first name, and first name, last name, and email address. I'll simply say email, and this is lname. I'll save it. Now if I fill something and I click on submit, I get to see form control again. Let's see. You can directly say form control dot value. Let's have these commented, and let's see how this can be achieved. When I say controls, I get fname. So controls dot, if I say lname and I save it, so type in here and see, this is lname dot value, and I type in something and I get the value. So you get all the details. You say fname, lname, email, save it, and you type in some values over here, and address we are not dealing as of now, and you see the values. Now that we have values coming from HTML to TypeScript and we are able to console log them, we'll perform some validations on these input controls, and for that we need to use pass in arguments like validators dot required, and this is a method. So it's the same required what we have used in ng form, and we applied that to the input control directly, but in here we do not apply any of these validators to the HTML input control. Instead we use the validators class and a method, and if at all you have multiple validators to be performed, then you say you use an array and you pass all the required validators like max length of, let that be 5. So this is how you do the validation. Now we'll have form, user form, and then we'll see the error in it. And what did I say? Max length is 5, and I'm passing these number of characters, and length is more than 5. Now I click on submit, and you see controls and first name, you see errors, and max length it says actual length is 14 and required length is 5. Now if I remove all this and type in Kiran and I remember this 14 and 5 and now I submit, now you see error says null. There are no errors at all because the max length I can provide is 5. So based on this validation properties, we can do some validation in HTML that we'll see in this session. So I'll apply the validation alert by using a div class. We have alert danger, and we can say ng if a condition wherein we use the user form, and we have dot get method, and you can get the f name, and you have these properties touched, and similar to this user form dot get f name dot invalid. You can close the div tag, and in this you can say a p tag again, ng if equal to user form dot get name or f name dot errors dot required. So we'll get the errors. Now we have nothing, but if I say something like this, I get the errors. So this is what I'm trying to fill in now. See errors, I need to save it actually. Required, and then you say first name is required. Likewise I'll have one more message, ng if equal to user form dot get f name dot errors dot max length. You say max characters expected is 5. Now I save this and I type in 2 characters, press submit, and errors are null. Let's also remove these characters because we are having 5, and then we'll pass 2 characters and then we'll see if validation is being applied or not. I pass 3 and I type, and see now I get max characters expected is 5, and if I remove all those, so it's accepting, and if I press more than 5 I get max characters is 5. So this is how you can perform the validation